I'm Dusty. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief, the man who knows everything.
You are a very happy camper today.
Very happy
Very
camper
happy
today.
camper. And it goes to our first story.
I'm a happy camper today. I may not be a happy camper on the 1st of June after I've dropped 1,100 quid.
And this is a definite purchase for you.
No, but it's a big consideration today. It's like, I
Okay.
need a new phone. I was literally going, I have to have this because it's new. It's the slimmest smartphone in the world. I don't care. I need to have it. And then I thought, by the end of the summer, I won't care. It'll just be the phone. So maybe I should actually go and get something that's maybe not quite just released and whatever. I'll say.
Okay, so this is exactly, what are you talking about?
I am talking about the Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge. It's out in the world. It's been released. We have hands on the whole thing. It will be available from the end of the month, start of June. Interestingly, Vodafone haven't got anything about it on their website. 3.ie do. Okay. The Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge was touted at the last big Samsung reveal, but they didn't quite reveal it. It was like kind of off in a railed off area where nobody could touch anything, and it was just kind of like these little tiny little thin phones hanging off hooks, and that's all we knew. Now it's out in the world. We have the facts that the Galaxy S25 Edge is officially the slimmest smartphone ever. It is a shade under 6 millimeters thick. Okay. Now, that's 1.5 millimeters thinner than the S25 Plus. And I'm wondering, will I notice? That's why I can't wait to get my hands on it.
When you go into the shop and you've got one in one hand and one in the
one
other.
in the other. And then the other thing that's really interesting is because the camera lenses, you can't make them any thinner. So you've got this really, really thin phone, and then at the end there's a really big bump for the lenses. So
Yeah.
from what I've heard from people who've handled it, is they said the balance is right. Okay, so it doesn't just kind of fall over. It's not top heavy or anything like that. But you do notice that big bump there. So how do you what do you do with that? And I'm immediately thinking is, well, I'll have to get a case to protect this phone.
One that you'll be able to find at a reasonable price.
Well, true, but it's eliminating the entire fact that it is the slimmest smartphone ever.
Yeah.
I had a pal of mine in RTE when smartphones came, or not smartphones, but our phones came out first, and they were big bricks. You'll remember that from whatever. They were brick, and the whole thing at the time was they were getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And Tony used to kind of go, "Oh, what's that under that paperclip? Oh, it's my new phone." That's the way he did it. I would like to do the same thing with like kind of where is it? Where is it? Oh my God, there's my new phone. It's so slim. Anyways, so yes, it's out 5.8 millimeters thick, which is not bad. Screen size is 6.7 inches, which is good. That's a good,
Pretty
nice.
good. Yeah.
I think it's the perfect size for me. It's light as well, as you would expect. The S25 Plus, which is what I'm kind of comparing it to, is 190 grams exactly. This slim phone, 163. Okay. Now, to put that into something we can understand, we all go down to Super Value or whatever, and we get our 3-pack of Mars bars or a 4-pack of Mars bars. Okay. The 3-pack of Mars bars is the slim phone, and the 4-pack of Mars bars is the regular S25 Plus. That's the difference in weight. The camera, they've bumped up, as well as the lenses being exceptional. It's got the same sensor as the S25 Ultra. Now, that's a 200 megapixel camera, which is ridiculous when you're taking pictures of your dog or whatever. It has all the AI tricks and all that kind of stuff, but as I say, sticks out a lot. When I get into my lava, then we'll know. Battery as well is slightly smaller. I think it's 3,900 milliamp per hours is the thing. Versus 4,000, which would be more regular. But Samsung still say that it will deliver 24 hours. So, 1,089 is the exact price of that. I'm considering it. The thing is thinness an issue with smartphones, do you think?
Well, okay. On one hand, this is their main selling point. This is their, nobody else has this
True, yeah.
line. which is okay. But how much of a selling point is that? Like I've got a Pixel 9, etc., etc. It's a bit
That's fine.
chunky. It's a little bit chunky, but it's a good workhorse phone, and it does everything pretty well. Um, do I want another phone because it's thinner? I don't have use of a thinner form factor. Now, I would say if you were to put it in my hand, I'd probably go, "Oh, that's actually fantastic. Yep, that'd be great. That'd be quite nice for carrying around. It's not going to be as bulgy in my pocket." Yep, there's a lot of goodness there. Do I see a need for it in my life today? No. Does it solve an additional problem today? No. But as an object of desire, maybe?
Definitely an object of desire. Definitely an object of desire. But do you know what else has been the object of desire? Is the flip phones. So when you flip it open, you get the large screen, and then also the fold phones have all been objects of desire. I don't see them that much.
No.
I've seen them, not that much.
Yeah.
So I wonder if kind of this would be the same. And that's why I'm kind of thinking, yes, I as a punter would, have the edge and this, that, and the other. But actually, do you know what? Maybe I'll just be better off with an S25 Ultra because it'll be just be hunkier and chunkier and it'll do more powerful.
I would have thought I'd see the flip an awful lot more than I do. The fold, okay, business device, I get it. You know, I understand why I mightn't see as many of these. But the flip, I just don't see the kids out with them. I just don't.
All right. Well, we'll see. Anyway, that's the S25 Edge out in the world. Getting a good reaction. We'll see how it does on the sales as we go on through the summer. Now, very serious story today with the good weather. Very serious story today with the good weather, the incredible weather we're having. And I hope it's not going to be one of these, whoa, amazing. The entire summer is going to be brilliant. And then it turns out not to be.
And it dies,
I hope not. But anyway, God, it'd be great if it was like this all summer. Can you imagine 3 months? Just 3 months. That's it.
See,
the other 9 months can rain 100% of the time. Don't care.
I would enjoy the novelty for maybe 3 weeks, and then I'd be like, I want my jacket back. I like wearing jackets too much.
Anyways, very serious story. Hose pipe ban. Okay.
Yeah. Because
we're running out of water.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people are being urged to think of our data centers.
Think of the data centers.
Tell me more.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of truth in jest, and this was a story on Waterford Whispers News. So, that we're not buying into that. We're not having one of these Onion moments where Fox News ends up, reporting something in the Onion as fact. But this is a bit of whimsy that actually made us think. So yes, there is a hose pipe ban in parts of the country. We also know we've got I don't want to say we've got a problem with data centers. I mean, we do and we don't. There's a limit to the load data centers can put on our national grid. And we also know that data centers are very hungry when it comes to cooling. To the point that this was a report in NPR. So these are American figures, but it'll give you a very good idea. So the average data center uses 300,000 gallons of water a day to keep cool. That's a lot of water, right?
Okay.
To put that into context, that's 100,000 regular homes. You could run a small town on the water it takes to cool a data center every day.
So a data center is using the same amount of water per day as a town of 100,000 homes.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is a fact. That's kind of a stunning fact, and hence that's why Waterford Whispers News had their what was that? The headline, I have it here: "Inconsiderate public urged to please think of the data centres before watering lawns. Many selfish gardeners are squandering vital water that could otherwise be used to cool our precious data centres." Yes, high sarcasm indeed. I love that website. Interesting though, the amount of water that is needed for those data centers.
Yeah.
Right. What else we got going on in the world today? Now, Dennis O'Brien, a man I know, has been annoying you.
I in our notes for the show, I just straight away put "Okay, boomer."
Okay. Yeah. He's getting old at this stage.
We've got a generational issue here, I think.
Oh, continue.
This is reported in many outlets this week. The telecoms magnate has come out and effectively said telecoms are not a good productivity tool. That's how I'm framing it. You might decide to be much more facetious than I, or much more reasonable. It's up to you. But basically, he came out and said that remote working was a load of nonsense.
Okay.
And, okay, there could be a generational thing going on there. I mean, he's a man that worked a certain way all his life, and if that's what has worked for him, that has worked for him.
I've looked it up. He's 67 years of age, so yeah. He would have a different experience to a lot of people in the workplace now.
He should be away somewhere enjoying life on a warm island.
I think he does. I think he does that anyway.
So that he doesn't have to... Well, anyway, we won't go down that particular road. But, so, I mean, he does not believe in remote working. I think... the world has moved on. I think we all believe in remote working. I mean, your workforce is remote. I work remotely an awful lot of the time. He believes that as a productivity sort of effort, it doesn't work. You don't get as much out of your staff. Now, I went and, don't take my word for it kind of thing. I went and I read around with different recruitment websites because I get a lot of press releases in as well. People saying, look, people love remote working. It saves on your commute. It has wellness benefits. It has become a selling point for Gen Z. So if you want to attract the best talent, you've got to demonstrate flexibility and that you appreciate people's work-life balance. And remote working is a very easy way to do it. You got a good broadband connection and you can prove your productivity, you are going to be just fine with remote working. And of course, it expands your catchment area for talent as well, because if you can't get the developer you want around the corner, but you can get them, say, in the next county, and it's all the same to you as an employer, whether they can, whether they have to travel 10 minutes to a remote hub or 1 minute to their kitchen table, or they want to come into an office, it can be all the same to you. So who actually is interested in getting people back into the office? Personally, I have it divided into two camps, right? You've got people with control issues, and you can extend that to organizations with control issues, and that's another story we'll be talking about later. Or people or organizations that have invested an awful lot in property. And we know during COVID that a lot of organizations, a lot of multinationals invested a lot of money in property.
Yeah,
and
but
they want to get as many people back in those buildings as possible and to let as many of those people go.
Yeah,
That's possible.
A lot of those corporations surprisingly rent their buildings. They don't actually build them, the long-term leases. I would actually, listening to you and listening to what Dennis O'Brien said, this will probably come as no surprise to you, but I would come more on the side of Dennis O'Brien than with you.
Okay, boomer.
It's not because I'm a boomer, all right? It's because it's extremes. Dennis O'Brien is saying that, working, remote working just is not working. It's a load of nonsense. So he's one extreme. And then you're saying remote working is the only way to go. Okay? Actually, I don't agree with either of you. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think when we had remote working first, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, who's a CEO of an engineering firm. And we were saying that during COVID and everybody was kind of working from home and it was all way amazing. And also we couldn't go out and do anything else. All right. Productivity, boom, through the roof. This is amazing. People are working from home and we're getting more productivity. It's not as productive as it was. All right. People are kind of learning, I'm working from home now. Well, then maybe I'll, do this or whatever. So it's not quite as productive as it was. Where I would sit is right in the middle. And I think it's the hybrid arrangement that works best. And I think it works best for the employer. And I think it works best for if you're working for a company. Because really, do you want to be working for a company where you're sitting at home in a home office all day, every day, and then spending the remainder of your evening in that same home?
Okay,
Or
well, I know people that have been driven batty by that kind of arrangement.
exactly.
But
So you have a
here's the
mix
thing.
where you have
Here's the
2 or 3
thing.
days in the office.
I think what has happened with work is that an awful lot of additional personal politics have arrived because Gen Z are pretty good at recognizing, look, the people at the top of the ladder, there's a handful of them. Most of them won't come up through the company the way that I will if I come in at an entry level. I'm not going to get a sweet deal, so I'm going to work as hard as I need to, and that's it. Right? Now, if you come into a physical office and you get a feel for the culture of a place, the levels of productivity that are expected, that has allowed Gen Z to set what they might regard as an acceptable level of effort, knowing that they're only going to get so far in a company. Right? So this is how you came to things like quiet quitting and coffee badging and things like that. Just things that create the illusion of being a high performing um, staff member, right? However, if you haven't had experience of an office culture, well, then remote working probably isn't a good solution for you because you've no benchmark. You haven't experienced any mentoring. You don't know where you fit in the hierarchy. If you go in and, yeah, okay, if you were full time before COVID, or if you're hybrid working now, you do get a sense of, okay, I am as good as this person, or these are the gaps in my knowledge. These are the things I need to work on. These are the things I can get away with. Because as we know, work is, you kind of have to be a political animal when you go to work. And the bigger the organization, the more political and strategically you have to think. Um, Now, I mean, we both work for very small organizations, so if something goes wrong, you know exactly who is at fault, and what they can do to either make sure it doesn't happen again, or maybe find somebody better at the job. There's no hiding in a small organization. If you're in a much larger one, well, you can
Well, you can
figure out,
hide. Oh, yeah.
yeah, you can figure out where to hide. So now, I can see somebody who is used to owning and running a very large operation saying remote work is nonsense because, somebody has come in and you're not getting the water cooler moments. But hey, you're also not getting a level of what one person might call supervision, another would call control.
Oh, the C word.
The C word. Because
Yeah.
that's, people see an option not to have remote working or hybrid working, and they think, well, that's because you want to look over my shoulder, and that's not a work culture I'm interested in.
Okay. Well, there you go. So Dennis is a boomer and you're Gen Z then.
I'm not that. You're two generations removed. I've come to learn that Gen X is actually the greatest generation,
Of all.
not the one that actually defeated the Nazis.
The
It's
one
it's the
after.
ones that got through, the grunge movement.
Listen, speaking of the workplace and tech jobs, Microsoft have come up with an interesting arrangement. They need to shave people off their organization. I think they want to drop 3% worldwide or something like that.
Mm.
They have a scheme with very interesting wording.
Well, I mean, this is something that we knew was coming down the line. We knew Microsoft were going to let a lot of people go. We weren't sure how many or where from. So, in terms of the Irish operation, we still don't know where from. But we know roughly who they're looking to get rid of. And this is because they have modeled their approach on Amazon's, which they called Pivot. They gave their mass firing project a name, as opposed to, we're going to streamline, which is what all the other places
Yeah.
said post COVID. Um, so the plan, as you said, 3% of the workforce, 6,000 people. Microsoft had a very famous productivity measure called stack ranking, which worked on the assumption that, somebody was always hiding in an organization. In the same way that we talked about just there, that there's always people that are underperforming intentionally, and we can get rid of those people fairly
Okay.
easily. Now, the current thinking is, okay, let's have a look at performance, and let's try and get rid of as many tiers of kind of non-performing sales or middle management, places that are actually quite hard to demonstrate what they bring to the company,
Yeah.
right? If you're a software developer, you can point to something and go, that's what I did. If you're in middle management and your job is to help put people in the mindset that they can deliver that, it's quite difficult to justify your employment. And that's the kind of people Microsoft are going after. So this creates a very interesting strategy from Redmond, and I want your input on this, right? Both as an individual and an employer, right? Somebody comes to you and says, "Okay, we can pay you off. We're doing this thing. We're letting people go. Everybody knows this, and you know, we will pay you 16 weeks of severance, right?" That's one conversation you might have. Another conversation that you might have is somebody comes to you and goes, "Do you know what? We've been looking at where you're sitting in terms of your overall output and this kind of thing, and we think you would benefit from a performance improvement plan. And if at the end of that plan, it can go one or two ways. If you're successful under the plan, you get to keep your job and we don't need to talk about this ever again. But maybe if you don't reach the targets that we set for you, well, we'll have to let you go. No severance." Right? So somebody comes to you with that choice, right? They say 16 weeks and goodbye, or performance improvement plan, we're not sure you'll keep your job. On principle, what would you do?
I think the majority of people do like their job, and I think the majority of people do want to do well in their job. So I think the majority of people will think to keep the status quo and to go with the performance plan, providing that the targets are reasonable, okay? Maybe it might be a case of, well, I have to work a little bit harder to hit these targets, but that's fine. Or I'm hitting those targets anyway, and that's fine. Or you might get somebody who's going, "Oh, Christ, I'm never going to get there." They've got a problem, all right? That's where I think the majority of people will land. I don't think people will go for the redundancy because, well, certainly that might be in the States. In Ireland, you've got all kinds of regulations about the redundancy and what entitlements you have, etc., and so on and so forth. I would say that on that question of performance plan or redundancy, the majority of people go for performance plan. And as a person who runs a business, I think a performance plan is actually kind of a good idea. All right. And I'm just being completely selfish, right? As somebody who's trying to don't look at it as an employer. I'm running a system and an organization. Okay. So there are various parts in that organization, and things have to be done. And they have to be done by a certain time and to a certain quality, okay? And you will know this as well in media team and all of the things, the events that are put on and the publications that are done. We all have deadlines, okay? So it's kind of like, well, have you achieved that by that time? Okay? I think from an employer's point of view, that's great because you want to be able to say, well, then I can rely on that part of the system or the company to have that job done. Okay. That's the way I would look.
And here's the flaw I find in your argument, right? You have your goal, right, is to have a successful product, a successful project.
Yes.
Right? The successful project in Microsoft's case is to let go of 6,000 people.
And this is, I think you're confusing the two things. They need to get rid of 6,000 people in their organization for whatever reason. That's one thing, but they have chosen this method in order to do it. Okay. So what you're talking about with the performance plan, is that something that should be in every business, in every company? And I think, yeah, why not? Okay. But Microsoft are using that as a to try and balance out the redundancy side of things. Do you know what I mean? Do you want to quit now, or do you want to keep going? And if you don't hit your targets, we're going to fire you anyway.
Yeah.
That's how it's coming across, like, you know. So
Yeah.
it's not good. Anyway,
Because I'm just saying from our perspective, a successful outcome is delivering the project.
yeah.
From Microsoft's perspective, the successful outcome is getting rid of people.
Well, listen. Do you know what the next thing for Microsoft will be the U word, union. Whoa! Anyway, let's not go there. Let's not go there. All right. Another interesting story that is breaking Thursday this week, and that is the whole thing about cookies. Okay, so we're used to the EU introducing this thing about cookies, and they'll tell you what the cookies are for, and then you have to click OK, and then those cookies will then realize that you're interested in that particular subject because you've been on that website, and then when you're on other related websites, it will show you ads for the first thing you were looking at. It's called retargeting, and actually I think it's a good thing, because if you're interested in lawnmowers and you're looking at a lawnmower website, and then you go to a gardening shop or a gardening website or whatever, it'll show you ads for the lawnmower. Why not? It keeps things relevant. All right. However, the entire system has now been ruled by a Belgian Court of Appeal to say that that breaks GDPR and is therefore illegal.
Yeah.
And even though Google are the kings of this, and probably, you know, it's kind of the majority user, it does go across all of the other advertising systems that are used by Amazon or by X or Microsoft, whatever. The court is basically saying that these cookies are deceiving hundreds of millions of Europeans.
Yeah, well, this is a decision that originally came down in 2022. So the timeline is kind of interesting. 2018, we had GDPR come in. 2022, so you can imagine that this legal action started, January 2nd to 2018,
Yeah.
This was probably something that was in the works. Finally, a decision in 2022, finally an appeal in 2025. So I would imagine this is, going without break, as opposed to, we'll devote 6 months here, 6 months there, etc. So this appeal wasn't filed by big tech. It was filed by IAB Europe, which is an industry body, and
Yes.
they represent pretty much everyone that would be advertising online. Sort of ad agencies and things like that, as well as the big tech firms whose commercial model relies on them. And, you know exactly what the arguments for and against are going to be, because they're embedded into the discourse when it comes to personal data. Specifically when we talk about AI, it's always, I didn't consent for anything I said to be used in the creation of a large language model. I didn't consent for this use over here. And the counter argument is always move fast, break things. Oh, you're against innovation.
Yeah, well, we've had analysts saying that, yeah.
Always. And, I thought there was a very good counter argument made by Johnny Ryan, who's director of Enforce at the Irish Council for Civil Liberties. And for anyone that has been following privacy in Ireland, I mean, he is he's a god tier expert at this stage. He's the guy. He has worked with publishers everywhere. He's worked with big tech firms everywhere.
Yeah.
And has never compromised on his belief that one's individual space is your space.
Right.
Your privacy is should be a given. And
so you would have thought then that Johnny Ryan thought that cookies was a good idea, but what's his view on it?
Well, I'll just give you a direct quote from him that was issued in answer to the decision. He said, "The tech industry has sought to hide its vast data breach behind sham consent pop-ups. Tech companies turn the GDPR into a daily nuisance rather than a shield for people."
Oh, very well summed up.
Because what's the first thing that happens when you visit a website you haven't visited before?
Oh, The cookie pop-ups just drive me, and I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that. I just see it and I just click okay, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes I kind of go, I'm not too sure. And it'll kind of go, well, you can choose what you want to do. And then it goes, here's the 3,450 advertisers we work with. Select which ones you approve.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, right. That is definitely turning it into a daily nuisance rather than anything else. It's interesting, though. We'll wait and see what the reaction to that is over the next couple of weeks. But Anna Leary, who I mentioned is the head of Meta in Ireland, she has been saying exactly what you said. These rules, they do limit potential to a certain extent. And because of that, the EU is stifling innovation, which I think it is, but it's doing it for the safety of the people within the EU.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's a pro-consumer decision.
There you go. It's the balance that's not correct. And as Johnny Ryan said, GDPR was brought in, to protect people, but the tech companies have now turned it into a real PITA. Pain in the butt. Just being nice about it. Also in advertising today, Ireland is putting towards suggesting a new law to apply across Europe where tech companies will have to validate who their advertisers are before they're allowed to advertise.
Oh, that's good.
It is actually, do you know what? It's not bad. I mean, the whole thing with Google AdWords and stuff like that when it started was anybody can put an ad onto the internet and you can do it for pennies. So, and people did, all right? And it was great for, kind of small sole traders or whatever to advertise. But of course, then you get the chancers, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, the amount of crypto crap I get, I mean, where are these guys? I don't want to know. I just want them gone.
Exactly. And most of them are, nowhere. So what Ireland is proposing is that the tech companies vet the advertisers, and that in Ireland specifically, only registered financial service providers who are registered with the central bank can place ads for financial products that are shown online in Ireland. I think it's a great idea. It's a great idea. There we go. Ireland leading the world, just as we will on Saturday night at Eurovision, providing that we're not knocked out on Thursday night, which is probably most likely. Right. What else have we got? One more story about somebody who bought 300 million worth of crypto waste, I would call it. The Pope, interestingly, has come out talking about AI. And when I say that, it was his first press briefing, and Leo the 14th, right? I'm such a nerd. I've written it down as Leo version 14. How bad am I? I'm going to hell for that. But anyway, in his first press briefing, one of the things he talked about was AI, and he said that it does bring immense potential for good. However, it also can pose challenges for human dignity, for justice and labour. And before him, Pope Francis had a quote, which I thought was interesting. He said, "We should look less at screens and look at each other in the eyes more."
Yeah.
Think about that.
I can't argue with that.
Can't argue with it. All right. I'm in no way religious, but I just thought it was interesting. Grant, final story of the week. Somebody has bought $300 million worth of a very special crypto.
A very special meme coin called Trump. Okay. Now, let's get cynical.
Let's get cynical.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be done for copyright theft now for singing that, but anyway, go on.
Yeah, so this was in the New York Times, a story that broke barely hours before we started having this conversation. Because we've been talking a while.
Too long, some would say, but go on.
Yeah, so a very, very small company in the States, apparently, called GD Culture Group. They employ 8 people. They made no revenue last year. And they have bought up $300 million worth of Trump coin, which they say is being financed by a stock sale. How one is going to buy 300 million worth of stock in a company that has reported no income? Okay, let's sidestep that for a while.
Something dodgy going on. Go on.
So a lot of people have said, to adopt the tone of the potential beneficiary of this purchase, have been talking about TikTok, because Trump has extended and extended and extended the deadline for the sale of TikTok's US operation. And as we know, we've had bids come together, or almost come together, to buy the operation of the parent company ByteDance, which of course is based in China. The concern is that China would have access to the personal data of US citizens. It was considered not acceptable by the Biden administration. They introduced a ban. The deadline on it, again, extended. Apparently, the ban extends next month in the States, sort of the latest version. So, what has happened now is that Mr. Trump, El Presidente, numero uno in the United States of America.
It's not El Presidente this week, it's Shake Trump.
Yeah, so his own personal crypto is getting, he's going to pocket an awful lot of money off this purchase. And it makes you wonder, this is a company that has ties to China, so what's going to happen? Is there going to be a sale of TikTok to some US entity we happen to have not heard of? Or is this proposed ban, just going to disappear? Like so many things in America at the moment, in terms of regulation and, prosecutions and sentencing for various felonies, will they just magically disappear?
No, they won't disappear. But what I think, and the reason I say they won't disappear is because this is not exactly, it was Trump in his first term was the one who started the whole TikTok thing.
Ah, okay.
Okay, and then it was Biden who continued it on. Now Trump is back. You would expect him to finish off the job. But I think it's going to be a deal that's going to be done. And we may even never know what that deal is. Or
you said the D word, of course.
I said the D. Well, there you go. Yeah. But it is very interesting that a small company that has, kind of no real financial activity, employs 8 people in a nameless office, and suddenly they're buying hundreds of $millions worth of cryptocurrency, which was founded by the...
Yeah,
shall I say?
It's named after him. There's no hiding
exactly. It. There you go. Yeah. I'm just trying to think. It's not the most highly rated in responsibility president of the United States. Nothing. Yeah, exactly. All right. Anyway, we keep an eye on it. Lots going on in tech, Niall. As always, let's wrap it up there. And thanks for keeping us up to date with everything.